Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to make this fun batch of cute cards that were the result of a late night crafting session where I just played with some new stuff. I'm using a couple stamp sets from Quetzalcraft and they came from our sponsor TopFlightStamps.com. Top Flight Stamps finds the coolest stamps all over the world, like these ones from France, and brings them back here to us in the United States. Now this stamp set had really cute sayings. I grabbed 5 of them to go with the 5 birds there, and I just went ahead and colored the birds with alcohol pens. Now, my original intention was to trim these out with my Scan and Cut, but because there's little doodads in the sky there over their heads, it didn't want to cut out very well, so I ended up just trimming them into squares. But my original intention was to cut these out with those little squiggles with my Scan and Cut machine and then use wobble springs on the back, but that didn't happen. It was kind of late at night, and I'm not the best hand cutter in the world, so I just decided I would trim them. But I wanted to put that idea out there in case that's something you wanted to do. Now, something I like to do if I want to get a bunch of different colors in is like I will kind of come in from the edges of a character with different colors and then kind of find one unifying color like that really pale kind of buttery yellow to kind of blend them in together in the center. Now, a really easy way to do that also would be to use your like a stencil brush or an ink blending tool, but then you'd have to fussy cut them really close because you would have the ink on the outside of the image as well. Or you can make a mask, but I was just kind of playing and having fun, and I didn't want to do all that work. No, I just wanted to have a good time, so I decided to color with markers so I wouldn't have to cut them out too carefully. But that's just another idea if you're better at scissors than I am. I think I peaked at scissor usage at like, grade 2 or something. I don't think I've gotten any better cutting with scissors since I was about 7 years old. But if you're not so challenged, I'm sure you do a great job at that. That's why I love my Scan and Cut machine. I'm just playing with colors here. I'm using a variety of different markers. Basically, I had seen that the Studio 71 brush tip markers were on sale this week, so I decided I would use those for a bit because I remembered how much I really enjoyed them. But the thing that's great about alcohol markers is that you can mix and match them across brands. And so that's what I do. I'm using some Azure markers from Royal Nightingale. I'm using some Stampin' Up markers. I'm using some Studio 71 markers. All the ink is pretty much the same across markers. It's just what you prefer as far as, your marker size, the marker tips. Do you like a chisel tip? Do you like a brush nib? Do you like a bullet nib? Finding the combination that you like the best. There are different types of chisel nibs. I know like the AC Moore Design marker and the Prismacolor original Prismacolor alcohol marker have a really cool tri-nib on the chisel nib, which is really cool. I think those are the only 2 that have that. And then like there's a standard chisel nib that most other markers have. It just depends on what you like the best, really. One person might love a brush and one person might love a bullet tip. It's completely up to you, really. I like being able to mix and match them. I notice if I have a large area that I like to blend, like the bodies of those birds, I like to have a brush nib. But if I'm going in like if I'm just going to do that little rim around the eye or a beak or a leg, then I like the bullet nib. If I've got to blend a really big area, I like a chisel nib. Or if I've got to erase a mistake, I like a blender marker that's got a chisel nib on it or a hard bullet tip, because then I can push that ink back where it belongs. And that happens more than I would like to admit. But I've really been into markers this last couple of weeks, just playing with them and just having a good time. So after trimming these into rectangles, I'm using my corner rounder. This is the corner rounder I recommend if you're looking for one. It's the We Are Memory Keepers Corner Chomper. I like it because I can actually round chipboard and mat board, and like I can do a stack of pages if I'm making a book. Not like a huge stack, but I can do a few sheets at a time. And it's really strong. And you can replace the cutting bits in it, I guess. I haven't had to, but they do make replacements for them. They make other shapes, but I find the rounders to be all I really want. They have a 1/4 and an 1/8 inch. And then for these sentiments, I decided I was just going to trim them into strips. I probably could have dug up dies that would have cut them into fancier shapes, but I'm really keeping it simple because I put so much work into the coloring, and I'm going to put a lot of work into the backgrounds here. So when I do that, I don't like to junk it up with too much other stuff. I like to let my hard work show. So this is a new product, and I was hesitant to use it honestly because there's warning on this product. This is the Tim Holtz Distress Oxide sprays, and I didn't realize it when I bought them, but several viewers told me during my haul video that there is a cancer warning on this product, and there's a little yellow triangle on the bottom that says warning : cancer. And so I kind of got freaked out, and I was kind of afraid to use them. So I contacted my friend, the Spin Doctor, who actually is a real scientist. He has a YouTube channel where he does information about pigments that are in watercolors and whatnot. And I asked him, I'm like, is this safe to use? Because I was kind of ticked off that, that a company would sell a product that's designed to be spray applied that has a chemical in it that you shouldn't spray apply. But it was a Prop 65 warning on this. And of course you do whatever's comfortable for you. But basically after back and forth with my friend Rich, I said, okay, is it safer than bacon? And he said, yes, it's safer than bacon. Just, there's different categories for carcinogens, and, bacon and cured meats happen to be in a more risky category than the chemical titanium dioxide, which is the chemical here that is being sprayed. So you can do whatever's comfortable for you. After speaking with him, I feel comfortable using these. I might use a mask. I didn't use a mask because they're so heavy. They just the droplets just fall down. It's not like they're hanging in the air. But you do what's comfortable for you. I just basically did a bunch of sprays. And then I knew that it was going to warp the paper a bit, so I decided I would go ahead while it's still damp, and I would use this cool circular embossing folder I picked up at the stamp show to kind of flatten it out and give it a cool texture. So when you're going to be embossing if you're going to be doing really wet techniques, go ahead and run that through an embossing folder when you're done. That's going to help it lie flat and not warp on you. And then I wanted the colors a little bit more vivid, so I'm using the old school Distress inks with my homemade sponge daubers to add some brighter color to these panels. I like bright colors, and for me, I just thought this really perked it up a notch. At this point, I felt like I wanted a little frame or just something to bring out that beautiful pattern, that doodly circly pattern in the background. So I grabbed my Black Soot Distress ink, the old school Distress ink, and I decided to ink up the edges just with my sponge. And I thought that gave it a nice frame, but I also wanted to really bring out that pattern a little bit more. So I ended up doing some direct to paper techniques with the pads. And basically what I do is I just pick up the pad itself, and I try to keep it pretty level, and I just kind of go over the paper, and that will grab all of those textures, all of those raised areas, and give you that nice crisp doodle look, which I thought went really well with these silly birds. Now I also just didn't feel like it was done, and I love making backgrounds, so I thought, why don't I spatter on some ink? Now I'd spattered on some Distress Oxide ink, and it didn't really show up as well as I wanted it to, so I added some Glimmer Mist, which is like a metallic dye-based ink. So I put some drops of that, and then the shimmery tonic blue ink that I had that was really opaque, that stood out really well and nice and shimmery, and added that. And then I added some white I think it's Dylusions ink, which that ink I was never really a huge fan of that. I'm glad I only bought one bottle because that spray ink never really seemed to be all that opaque. And then for a little bit more shimmer, I went in with some sparkle gel crayons. You can get those very inexpensively, like on Amazon, or they sell them in bookstores and stuff. I think that's where I might have got mine. And then I just kind of smudged it with my finger, and just to kind of spot color some areas where I felt needed a little bit more brightness. Now, when I was laying these out, I thought the backgrounds looked a little too stark next to that beautiful colored background, so I decided I would do a little inking on the edges of them after I kind of set them down to see. Now this, I thought this bird and this sentiment was pretty funny, and it said, stop trying to make everyone happy, you're not tequila, because so these cards are like definitely girlfriend cards, because a lot of the ladies in our lives, they want to make everyone happy, and they want to be peacemakers, and sometimes you just had enough, right? So I thought that would be really funny to share with a friend who's just just having one of those days. And I didn't have any embellishments that would really go with margarita, but I did have a martini glass and an olive and a cherry. And I thought that would go well enough. And I'm using my color dusters to throw in some quick ink. And I'm telling you, man, those makeup brushes kind of spoiled me, because as I'm like color dusting my ink in there, I'm thinking, oh, I should have used the makeup brushes because they're so much better. I don't know. I guess I was just, on one hand, I wanted to make a batch of cards really quickly. And on the other hand, I was kind of like, oh, I want it to look a certain way. But that was fine. But I did switch over to the makeup brushes after that. I'm using some really thin foam tape. This came from, actually, you can find it pretty much anywhere. I think I grabbed that at Simon Says Stamp. But it's thinner than like the 3N tape. So the nice thing about that is that if you're using it on a card, you do get the dimension, but it doesn't squash and warp on you when you mail it through the mail, because it's thin enough that it won't give you a ripple. Sometimes if you have that really thicker foam tape, you would get a ripple if you don't use enough. So I just wanted to give you that. So I thought that was kind of a cute little card to send to somebody when they're having a rough time. And now I've switched over to the makeup brushes because I just you do get a much more even application. It might take you a little bit longer, but with these small pieces, it's only going to take a few seconds longer. So I decided to splurge a little time there, even though it's like 10 o'clock at night when I'm working on this, and the video is due to be up the next day, and I really shouldn't be taking extra time, but you got to do what you got to do. I loved this one. It's just one of those days, because everybody has one of those days sometimes, and I thought that would definitely cheer somebody up to get that in the mail. Those long-legged birds are just so cute. I did find that I'm not very good at applying ink with those tiny little makeup brushes over a large panel, so I did switch back to the color dusters for that one, for using that pink. And I find kind of sticking stuff down like kitty corner or cattywampus really helps when you're doing these kind of quirky cards, especially if you're not sure if you're going to embellish them. It just gives it that playful aspect that I think these stamps really do well with. So if you don't have a lot of time to make a card, put your layers on a little crooked. It's still going to be like, head and shoulders above anything you're going to buy at the store. Now, I am like, I don't know what my deal is with stickers and embellishments. I don't know if they really help my cards sometimes. I feel like I'm better off leaving them off. So you can let me know in the comments below if you like these better before I added these embellishments or after. But I did pick up these kind of fun, like jumbo, like brad, I don't know what you call them. They're not brads or stickers, but they're like 3-dimensional things. I picked those up a couple months ago at AC Moore, and I was adding them on, and then I found these stickers at Martin's of all places, and I just thought they were kind of cute. They were these like kind of crazy looking creatures, and I thought they would be kind of fun on some of these cards. I don't know, you can let me know what you think. I kind of wish they were a little more opaque. I can see the background through them, and it kind of makes them maybe fade in too much. I'm not sure. You can let me know what you think. I think with these really thick domed, like faceted stickers, they're going to take an extra stamp or going to have to be hand delivered because they are hard and thick, but I do think they're kind of cute, and I bought them and I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do with them, so I think that works. You can find the stamps I used at topflightstamps.com. They are our sponsor today. I hope you enjoyed this video. These were fun to make. They were really fun images to color, like all the Quetzalcraft images are, and I love kind of silly everyday cards that I can send for no reason at all. Thanks for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.